And we're back. We're on. We are going at it even pre-show. This is the Great Classic Rock Debate. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul with zero qualifications.
And I'm Steve.
Yes, and we talk anything and everything classic rock. We have fun. We try to keep it interesting. If you are watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out our sister channel, The Great Classic Movie Debate. And we are about to start a new channel, The Great Classic Sports Debate. And it is going to be good because, man, the stuff going on in the sports world right now, especially college football, it's deserving of a good debate. So we'll get into that. Last week, we started out with our show about Rush. And we actually started with Cherokee Nation and transitioned into Rush, and we were sort of just scratching the surface. So we're going to continue on with that tonight. And I'm going to lead in like this, just sort of, I guess, recapping what we had said last week. I first heard of Rush mid 70s. It turns out their first album was 74. That was the album with Working Man. And then Fly By Night, I think, was the next album after that, whatever. So I knew like one or two songs by them. I thought it sounded good. I didn't make too much of it because I didn't know much about them. I didn't even know at the time they were Canadian. And I know that when I looked at their albums, they had the long duration songs, 15 and 20-minute songs, which is a progressive band do that. So Rush was a hard progressive rock band. And then for me, the one that really pushed them over the edge was The Spirit of Radio in 1980. I just thought that was one of the greatest rock songs that I had heard in a good while at that time. And I also told the personal story. It still to this day transports me back to a different time and place in the 1980 as the winter was ending and the sun was starting to come out. That song was all over the radio, and it just felt like it ushered in the spring. And I loved it. I couldn't hear it enough. I would crank it up whenever it came on. And I knew then Rush is a special band, and I knew that song, The Spirit of Radio, was going to stand the test of time. It would still be good 10, 20, and 30 years later. Okay, that's my lead in. Paul, you want to move it from there?
Yeah, I'll go because I'm going to bring in Steve slowly because Steve's not a big Rush fan. And I'll say this. I know a lot. I know hundreds of musicians in LA. We all grew up with him. Steve is literally the only musician type person that doesn't like Rush. I mean, if I lined up 1,000 people, you like Rush? Yeah. There's Steve. I know Steve's in the crowd because he's that one guy. And I'm not a big fan of the Allman Brothers. So it's just all right. So Rush, which you just said something was brilliant, Kenny, as usual. They were under enormous pressure from the label because the labels, all these musicians would come here like, we could never play what Rush does in 100 million years, but no one's buying it.
Right.
Literally, no one's buying it at the store except for, the deep super fans. And there was pressure. They said, you got to come up with hits that we could play on the radio.
Right.
And they went, oh, okay, you want us to do a song about playing hits on the radio? Here's The Spirit of Radio.
And that's exactly what it was about.
Yes. And like there's some other good songs on that album. And then when Moving Pictures came out, it was like, like this nuke, it's like the Death Star coming and slowly people started to reorient. Because like back then, Steve, I would have Ari with her friends, like I was, of course, Bonham, as you know. I'll have that on my tombstone. But people were talking about Keith Moon, who was a really, really good drummer, and some other drummers, Cozy Powell, I don't know if you know who that is, and Carl Palmer, Emerson Lake and Palmer.
Right.
And then when Neil Peart came on, like I was at his party, and it was like 20. There was a bunch of bands from my high school. These were really good bands, and they're like, Paul, and we started talking, and so my other friend's there, who's kind of a bozo, and he's like, Keith Moon is way better than Neil Peart, and we're like, whoa. So to humiliate him, I did a poll of everyone at the party. There were like 50 people, and 49 said Neil Peart was better, and Tim was the only one, right? So I was like, oh God. But you have to just open your mind. So Rush had these hits finally on Moving Pictures, and they started having more hits. And the next album, Signals, is a different type of album, but it is just incredibly good too. And they keep having hits, but Steve, just something you could talk about, like a band has a period of from their 20 years old till 34. I'm just making this number up, where that's where their core work is done. and they'll have a hit or two on an album afterwards, right? But nothing like, if you think about the Rolling Stones, I mean, they had, from the mid 60s to the 85 Steel Wheel, or 88 with Steel Wheels, Tattoo, I mean, all that. But then after that, they kind of eased off. And I don't know, Steve, I want to hear what you think. Is it money? Did they run out of ideas? Or, like, well, I've got $100 million into buying. Well, should I get out and play a song to die? I don't know. What do you think, Steve?
I think it's because they've grown up, musicians get in their 30s or whatever, and they become adults, and a lot of these bands, they kind of grew up together, at least in their formative years. They were all really good friends, and then you kind of grow up and you're like, all right, I got other priorities. Like, I got to go to my kid's soccer practice or whatever.
Or beat a woman.
I think that's what happens to most of these bands. It's not that they don't become creative anymore. They don't have time to sit around and be in, get in the garage for 10 hours a day and just jam around. They grow up and they have other things to do.
Okay, let me add a thought real quick, because I think there's one, we've mentioned it in a previous show, but I think there's something important we're leaving out right here. And that is, and let's just use the Rolling Stones and Rush, both, that's our examples. Both were making good rock through the 80s, getting played on rock stations or whatever. Steel Wheels. Rush had Time Stand Still. What was the song they had towards the end of the 80s?
Yeah, Time Stand Still. Oh, God.
Something else, too.
The Big Money.
Anyway.
Show Me, Don't Tell Me.
Yeah. My point is that in the 90s, it was rock radio. I'm not even going to call it classic rock yet. It was just rock radio that turned and went in a different direction. And they were no longer playing Rolling Stones and Rush. They were playing Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Stone Temple Pilots or whatever. So they really embraced the grunge alternative type of thing. But the more traditional, conventional, classic rock bands at that time, they weren't, the Allman Brothers, they weren't playing this stuff anymore. So the bands, and they may have changed, but it wasn't so much about what they were doing differently or the quality of their music changing. It was the radio just ignored them, which I think is a sin against humanity myself.
Yeah, but if you think about, I agree with everything you said, Kenny, but if you think about, like, let's look at Paul McCartney and Ringo. Like, have they really recorded together since Let It Be? I mean, they've probably done a few tracks here and there, maybe a guest spot here and there.
Right.
But it's not like they're sitting around going, hey, Paul, what are you doing today? You want to come on over and jam and write some songs? Like, I just don't think you get to a certain age, I think, and that you just have other things to do in life. That's what I think happens.
Okay, I agree with that.
There's so many other bands that fall into that same category. Even Guns N' Roses, they've been touring together now for the past, 6 years or so. They've released, I think, 3, maybe 4 kind of singles here and there, but not a new album, and they probably never will. Yeah. I just think they have other things. I don't think it's a creativity thing. I just think it's.
Hey, I agree. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Well, I think you both are on something really cool, and I'll tell you what you both are onto is that the collab. See, that was brilliant what you said. The collaboration, like, I was listening on the band Kansas, who we should talk about one night, or maybe we have.
Oh yeah,
and awesome band. And the guy, I forgot the guy's name. He's not the singer, but he's a guitar player, and he writes all the songs.
I think it's Kerry Livgren. I think
that could be right. So what he does, their process was he goes in a studio by himself for 6 months. And then he goes, okay, you got the phone up, put it out. We're dust in the wind. And he's just singing it out. And the other guy goes, oh my God, I got it. And it's just like, so he, you know what I'm saying? Like, this one dude behind this particular band is a creative, like Robert Smith is the driving force behind The Cure. Like, he's coming up with these songs.
Yeah.
Right. But together, I see that's what's weird, Steve, is like you'd figure Slash and Axl. I don't know. What do you think? Like they're not collaborating, but they're still musical geniuses, of course.
I think why would they just write shit? To do rehearsals when they go before they go on tour. And that's probably it. I mean, they're doing more than that because they have released a few songs, but I think, they just get like Mark McGrath, I think it was from Sugar Ray, said it best. I heard an interview with him about 10 years ago. and they asked why Sugar Ray broke up, and he said, "Could you imagine working at the same job you were at when you were 17, like the same people?" And he's like, "That's what it's like being in a band."
I like that guy.
I do.
I-
So I just think they're like, hey, we've grown up, we've gone different ways. I mean, the Rolling Stones, they released a new album, but I mean, when was the last one before then? 2004, 2005. So it's just the thing. I
Yeah.
think they got other things to do in life.
Yeah.
And
Hey, just for the record, 20 years ago or so, I saw Mark McGrath on an episode of Celebrity. Did they call it Rock and Roll Jeopardy or Musical Jeopardy or something or other? I think it was Rock and Roll Jeopardy. He was on an episode of that to raise money for charity. I don't recall who he was against. And the final score was like 50 million to 0. He answered every question of the entire game. Nobody else even got a chance to play. He didn't get one wrong. Anybody who thinks he's a dummy, he's no dummy. That guy's smart.
I walked by him at this pharmacy in Beverly Hills, and the dude, I first of all, I love this guy, but he's like 5 feet tall.
Right.
So I walked by and I said, "Oh, that's a good looking little guy there." And then I turn around, "Oh, hey, Mark." He goes, "Oh, hey." He was shook my hand. We talked for a second. He was the coolest cat ever.
Yeah.
But I was like, you don't realize people are short, and me and Kenny are about 6'1". And so it's just weird to walk by these people because the way they're shot, like Steve and I know this from making movies, you put the camera down. So these people, and it's nothing, you can't help that if you're short or tall, but it's just like, I don't even look down. It's weird.
did you say, hey, you're a good looking little guy?
Yeah, I said, "You're a very cute little man." Little dwarf, I called him, like an elf.
And he said,
Call
from
me
you,
dwarf
Paul,
one more time.
that's a compliment. Yeah.
No, he's a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he seems like it. Okay, so quick question about what was 1982 was Signals. Okay,
Yeah.
you mentioned it, but I wanted to ask you a particular question because the single that was played from that was New World Man.
Yeah.
Okay, for me was a very average
Oh, I
and
love that song.
I thought it was a forgettable song after the massive success of Moving Pictures, and with songs that I knew these songs will still be popular 50 years from now. I thought New World Man was just average and didn't hate it, but I just thought, wow,
I really like it. But that song, that's a good. There's other better songs, and one of the songs I think I told you about is called "The Analog Kid."
Yeah.
And I talk about best guitar solo, and he uses a whammy bar. I think it's the best whammy bar solo ever in the history of music.
It's a good song.
But, and then there's the song "Subdivisions." But if you start reading the lyrics, like we talked about Neil Peart and the lyrics, and like he goes, subdivisions, these new cities, they can't keep the kids entertained and stuff, and it's always turns bad. It's a
right.
It's
I
really
didn't know
heavy.
that song was. I didn't know that song was on that album.
Yeah.
That's a great song, Subdivision.
Yeah. And they have some other songs on. Yeah, but it's a really good album. But it's so hard. Like Steve, I want you to talk about this. Unless set aside if you're Led Zeppelin or the Beatles, or okay, set that aside. And like on Rush, but when Rush made Moving Pictures, I mean, it's one of my top 5 out. I'm gonna put it in the grave with me.
Right.
You're like, how do we go on? How do you set the bar low or do you set the bar higher? I don't know, Steve. What do you think?
For the musicians, I don't know if they just say, I'm going to set the bar higher. They just put out what they want to do.
Okay.
They just put out what, and Rush had FU money. So
Yeah.
That's true.
maybe not 1980, probably, but
Right.
Well, I want your opinion on both of your opinion on what I'm about to ask. A lot of bands will go into they'll release their album, they'll go to the concert, and the songs they think that they love and worship, the audience is like, nah. And like there's a song by Soundgarden called
Werewolves of London.
Yeah. There's a song by Soundgarden called "Drawing Flies," and evidently, I guess it barely made it into the album. And then like Chris Cornell's like, whenever we play a song, the audience goes crazy, so we started playing it more. So it was like, it's just always funny. Like the band knows, they just throw. It's weird how they don't know what their own good songs. And I think
some
ahead,
bands know it. I think most bands do. They just play. Some make the decision that they're going to play the hits, and some say we're going to play whatever we feel like playing.
No, but like the band.
I heard 2 great quotes.
Go ahead.
One from Don Henley when oh God, no, I can't remember the name of the
Eagles,
no, the Eagles, but I'm trying to remember the name of the Randy Meisner.
Wesley Meisner. Yeah. Oh yeah. I know the
He was
story.
like,
Go
I
ahead.
don't want to play take it to the limit one more time. and Don Henley and Glenn Fry were like, I'm sick of these songs too, but people have paid a lot of money to hear
A
these
lot.
songs,
Money.
and they've
Yeah.
waited their entire lives, and we're a professional band and we're gonna play it. And so he's like, and Don Henley's like, yeah, that was Glenn Fry who said that. And Don Henley said, yeah, we
Right.
play the hits. I have no qualms about that. That's what people want to hear. And then you have guys like, and Rob Zombie is the same way. He said, I have played Thunder Kiss 65 well over 10,000 times. You think I want to hear it again? No. But he's like, I know that's what people want to hear. So, you have that. Those are professional musicians. And then the other guys are just like, I don't want to play this stuff anymore. So,
Yeah.
No, but I'm talking about not playing on tour, but when they make the song like the first time, like remember that quote in Airplane when they're doing the counterpoint, and the other guy goes, "What's terrible is going to happen?" And the one guy says, "They paid their money, they bought their ticket on the airplane.
they knew what they were getting into.
They knew what they were getting. I say, let them crash." So when you write "Cherry Pie" by Warrant, you've got it in the back of your mind. Go, if this song hits, we're playing this crapo song a million times, so I blow my head off.
Right.
Right. And Johnny Lane, I think I don't think he killed himself, did he? But he's dead.
He did pass. I can't remember what the cause of death was.
He had drug and alcohol problems.
Yes.
And depression and everything. Yeah.
But I think it's true for any musician. Any song that you play live, you have probably played that song. I mean, you recorded it. I mean, you played it 1,000 times in the studio.
Right.
But
You're sick of it by then.
What Led Zeppelin did in other bands, Led Zeppelin played "Whole Lotta Love." It was like a 6-minute song originally.
Yeah, every
then
live
over the
performance was completely different.
Yeah, the next 10, 12 years, they played 75 versions. It would last a little bit longer, shorter, and they would improvise. They'd put this song in there by Chuck Berry, and they put another song in there by Elvis. And it was like, okay, we're going to play the song, but we're going to do our own things with it. So,
yeah, every
is
Led
kinda cool.
Zeppelin show was different.
yes.
Even if it was the same tour. Now, you have bands like AC/DC. I love AC/DC. Every tour of theirs is probably the same, as far as every show on a tour is the same. It's the same set list for the most part. And they play it the exact same way. But every tour is different versus where Led Zeppelin, every show is different versus every, like AC/DC, every tour is different. So how many times has AC/DC been on tour? 20, 25 times probably. They have 20, 25 different concerts in my mind.
Yeah.
Whereas Led Zeppelin, they did 30 shows in, let's say, 6 months. You had 30 different shows.
That made you want to go see them all, right? You want to want to go see
everyone be a completely different experience.
Like one night I saw Billy Joel like 3 nights in a row, believe it or not. And I was married and I was forced to go. It was
Wow. I can't believe you're admitting that, Paul.
And the first 2 shows were kind of the same almost, but the third show was like on a Saturday night, and he goes, I forgot what song he was gonna play. And he goes, I'm not playing. I played the last 2 nights. And he goes, he went around like a quarterback doing an audible and says, okay, we're gonna do this. And they played Allentown, which they hadn't played on that tour. You know that song, Allentown?
Yeah, I like the song.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was like, I was like, oh, cool. Billy Joel is sick of this crap too. It's his own songs. You know, like,
Right.
I'm gonna change it up. You know.
Now, Paul, did Celine Dion open or close for Billy Joel on that
This
tour?
was a long time ago, dude. This is like 92 or 93.
Yeah.
Now, you remember we did have a friend in film school who went to that Billy Joel concert with Celine Dion.
No, who?
His name is
okay.
Steve, but he's not me.
Oh, that's
and the
Steve.
next
Okay.
day he wore the Celine Dion t-shirt.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Never wore it
Shameless.
again.
Shameless. Yeah. Okay, Paul, let's shift right back over to Rush now, because the next album after Signals was Grace Under Pressure, 1984. Give me your thoughts.
That's that early distant warning on that.
Distant Early Warning. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I really like that song. And some of the other stuff on the album, not so much, but I like that song a lot. And that's where I'm going to like if you're under time pressure and you got to get the album out, and Rush is a great, you know what I'm saying? Like, but the songs are good. I'm not saying that. They're just not the hits, or I don't know.
Right.
What do you think?
I know at the time the album was released, it did not zoom up the charts the way
No.
that they were expecting it to. And it was noticeable to me that for the first month or two after it was released, I wasn't seeing any new Rush videos. And I'm going, wow, what's going on? Maybe this album's not good. You know, I had seen it in the stores, but you know, in those days, you waited until you heard something really good from a couple of your friends or whatever before you bought it. So I didn't buy it. And then I felt like it had been out for at least 2 months. I see the video to Distant Early Warning, and I go, "This song's great! Oh my god!" Yeah. So I'm like, "What in the world would have kept that from selling and being played?" So anyway, that's one of my favorite Rush songs. Quite
I
frankly,
agree. And part of what Rush did was, and a lot of people, there's the most diehard, you could start a huge argument with any Rush fan because Signals, I think, is where Geddy Lee started using the damn keyboard for the next 20 years.
okay, yeah,
Okay.
I think you're right.
And I can't remember the name of the album anymore. I think it's got anyway, it doesn't really matter. Snake Shooting Ladders or whatever it's called. I think that's the album maybe where he stopped using the damn, and people are like, turn those damn keyboards into the, burn them, explode them. You know, and he got him like he almost like almost needed as a crutch, not as a musician crutch, but just like, I got to wake up and have my binky. He's got to wake up and have this keyboard, and he's like one of the best bass players ever. And so
Right.
you're like, why do you need these damn keyboards? Go get John Paul Jones to get on the albums with you. Let him take over the keyboards. And you know, that was a joke.
I'm just trying to envision two Rush fans who are about 120 pounds each fighting in 7th grade science class over what the best Rush song is. That's like the typical Rush fan.
Well,
You're probably
I know
right.
Steve's trying to be funny right now.
I'll just say this about Rush. I'll get this. Paul knows this. I recognize that they are 3 of the most talented musicians to ever walk the earth, especially Neil Peart, being a drummer myself.
And also, if you're going to mention his name, don't forget the lyrics, dude. He's in a different dimension with his lyrics. Seriously.
Yeah, it's just it's not my thing. I certainly have all the respect in the world for him. Not my thing. And then I have also never met a Star Trek fan who did not like Rush. So I think it's kind of a universal kind of deal. Like in college, everybody I knew who was big into Star Trek, they were huge Rush fans. So that's it.
And that's me. Star Trek and Rush. It goes together. Did you see a thing on South Park, Kenny, where they I think what song is that they're doing? It's Tom Sawyer, and the Rush is the kids in South Park are the band Rush, and they're playing it, and it must be the guys in South Park who are really good musicians. They're playing the song. It's I'll find it for you, Kenny. It's really funny.
Okay.
Watch them do it.
Did you guys see that movie? It was, I'm going to guess 2008 or somewhere around there. And it was called I Love You, Man.
Oh yeah.
Okay. First of all, it was a good and funny kind of a romantic comedy kind of thing.
Yep.
And second, there was significant Rush contributions to that movie because these two guys are becoming friends and they each are finding out things about the other and they bond over Rush and they're singing, they're playing in the garage and singing. I thought it was a great scene.
Yeah, and they go to the concert, and I think every person at the concert was a single male.
Could be.
That's probably true.
You guys are excluded from this, but
Of course.
No, it's a oh god. So another song I want to talk about before we.
Okay, we got our warning. So tell us this song and we'll chat it and then we'll wrap it up.
It's a long song. It's called La Via Strangiato.
Yes.
The
From
Strange
Hemisphere.
House, I guess. Something in Italian.
Yeah.
It's a really long song. And it's got like really difficult drum and bass. And like heard I don't Steve, was it Dimebag? No, it's Vinnie Paul Abbott, his brother, talked about that's the best drum bass song ever. Like, and this is from Pantera. They're like, he said, everyone talks about YYZ. Great song. You want to hear drum and bass from Rush? Go listen to Via Strangiato. This is coming from, one of the Mount Everest of drummers, Vinnie Paul Abbott. So it was cool.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, he says that. Like, he's like, YYZ's great. I'll find it for you, Steve. And because as soon as I say Pantera, Steve's little radar goes, boop, 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 boop. I'm going to listen now. He talked about Pantera. Yes.
Those are little devil horns that are actually
devil horns.
Okay, Paul, quick question. sometime in the 90s, I don't recall which album it was. Rush did an album in which they incorporated some, I don't know, was it rap or something or other? Which album was that?
I don't know, because there was a point where I kind of interestedly faded out on them. So
Right.
I have to admit that.
Well, for me, that was the one. I don't remember now which album it was, but I was like going, really? They're trend followers now? Are you kidding me?
Was that 12 Inches of Snow?
That was funny.
There is a Canadian rapper who came out in the mid-90s named Snow, and he had that song called Informer.
Right, exactly. I didn't know he was
like,
Canadian, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's Canadian, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
It was
my
a
God.
huge hit, and I guess I'll never understand that.
The record was called 12 Inches of Snow.
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
But I
Which
mean, there's
is-
another band that got. I mean, Neil Peart's wife and daughter were killed in a car crash, and
Oh, I didn't know that.
oh
I didn't
yeah,
know that either.
oh yeah, this guy's, and then he died of cancer. He had a. It was some of these
Wow.
people. I always believe in this weird thing, Kenny. You're gonna laugh now, like life force. Like I believe that people in football, professional football, if they have too much life experience, it burns out their life force. I think the same
Possible.
with rock star.
I've thought about that kind of thing before. Like you've got an energy tank or whatever, and if you use it up faster, then yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've thought about that. I don't,
And
I'm
it's
sure
also
there's no-
maybe the crossroads. Like, all right, somebody goes down the crossroads. Here comes, Mephistopheles. They make the deal. I gave you everything you want. My turn. You have to pay me up now, right? I don't know. It's
Right.
always
right.
It's just golly.
We should do a show on the musicians that have died in car wrecks or accidents. Mark Bolan, and
Yep.
then
T-Rex,
yeah, and then
Skinner. I mean, you could go on for this for
Robert
days.
Plant's son as well.
Yeah, car
Terrax.
accidents and airplane accidents.
Yeah,
You know.
maybe we did that once. I feel like we did.
No, we haven't, but we should. You're right. Listen, let's go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. We're out of time. Anybody want to make any nominations to our classic rock playlist?
Yeah, Rush on Snakes and Ladders, One Little Victory.
Oh, that's a
really
good song. That's a good song.
Really good drumming song by Neil Peart. Just real good.
Yeah, that's a real good song.
Since we're talking about Rush, my favorite Canadian trio is Triumph, and so if you haven't heard the song "Lay It on the Line,"
That's a good song.
Very
check
good
it out.
song.
All right, and we mentioned it earlier, just an early warning. I don't think I've ever heard it on Classic Rock, so I'll throw that one into the ring. And we're going to wrap it up there. So for this week, this is the Great Classic Rock Debate. If you're watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul.
I'm Steve.
Don't forget to check out our sister channel, the Great Classic Movie Debate. We're headed over there right now. Until we meet again, we'll see you next time.